Welcome to the Climate Reality presentation, Truth in 10. The Climate Reality Project Europe is one of our 10 Climate Reality branches. At Climate Reality, our mission is to catalyze a global solution to the climate crisis by making urgent action a necessity across every level of society. Gina McCarthy, the EPA administrator during Obama's administration, said something very meaningful that has stayed with me, and I often use it in my presentations. She said that we all know that the science of climate change is clear, but the challenge is how to make it personal. And for me, the issue of climate change became personal in 2011 when I was living in Thailand and I experienced the great flood events of 2011 in Thailand. And that was the start of my environmental activism. I started my volunteer work for the Ian Somerhalder Foundation, and in 2014 I became the official ISF community crew member in Thailand. And through my work with the Ian Somerhalder Foundation, I got to know the Climate Reality Project. I was invited to join the training in Manila in 2016. And I became a climate reality leader ever since. I've been working mostly and focusing on climate change and climate crisis related issues and projects. So many exciting campaigns and projects that I've been involved with. One of the most important one to me and one of my favorites is the 100% Committed campaign of the Climate Reality Project. So with the climate crisis being one of the most important challenges of our life, there are only three questions remaining. Must we change? Can we change? And will we change? And the Apollo mission, among other things, changed the environmental movement, and we've learned a lot about ourselves ever since and the planet that we all share and live on. This is one of the most fascinating images in the human history. It's called the blue marble, and it's one of the most unique images because until very recently, this was the only picture of Earth where the Earth is fully illuminated by the sun. This image was taken by the last Apollo mission, Apollo 17, in 1972. This image communicates one of the most important facts about the climate crisis. This is an image of our life-giving, ever so perfect atmosphere. And the sky is not what it appears to be when you go outside and look up at it. It is not thick and it is not limitless. It is fragile. And the light waves pass through the atmosphere, and most of its heat is absorbed by the Earth, used by us humans, animals, and plants. And some of this heat is radiated back to space, and some of it, because of the natural greenhouse gas layer, is trapped, which keeps the temperature on our planet within comfortable boundaries. But with all of these innovations and industrial advancements came pollution in the form of heat-trapping gases, carbon dioxide, methane, and the dangerous mercury, which we are now discovering in our fish. And because we are putting 152 million tons of this global warming pollution into this shell of atmosphere every 24 hours, we are thickening it. And that is why now most of this outgoing heat is trapped, which drives the temperature on our planet upwards. And there are so many different causes to this man-made global warming pollution, as you can see in this picture: industrial agriculture, landfills, forest burning, crop burning, industrial process, and of course the main one, which is the burning of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels still provide more than 80% of the world's energy, and fossil fuel use and emissions have been going up dramatically since World War II. And as a result of this pollution being trapped in the atmosphere, the global temperatures have now been dramatically going up as well. And in fact, 19 of 20 hottest years ever recorded with instruments have been since 2001, and the hottest of all that have been in the past 5 years. And the heat affects not only us humans, but also animals, our crops, and our weather. And this was just the atmospheric heat that we talked about. But most of this extra heat goes into our oceans, and that can have dramatic consequences because most of our planet is covered by the oceans, and the warming oceans disrupts the water cycle, which starts with the evaporation of water vapor off the oceans into the atmosphere, and more moisture in the atmosphere, therefore larger downpours and much bigger precipitation events. Here is an image of a downpour in Nebraska in 2015 and the great flood events in India in 2015. And this extra heat at the same time, the same extra heat that causes the evaporation of water vapor off the oceans into the atmosphere also takes the moisture out of the land. And that is why at the same time we are seeing extreme floods around the world, we are also experiencing severe droughts all around the world. Here is one in Brazil, a severe drought events in 2015 and 2016 in Brazil caused water shortage and water rationing across the country. And the vegetation is dry along with the land. It becomes more vulnerable to fires as well, and that is why we have been seeing an increase in the number of wildfires around the world as a consequence of this extra heat. And the climate-related extreme weather events have been going up worldwide, and the last 2 years rank among the top 10 most expensive for overall disaster losses, with over 160 billion US dollars in losses in 2018 and over 160 billion US dollars just last year. And one of the other consequences of this man-made global pollution is the melting of the glaciers. As you can see, this image was taken by NASA in 1935 of the region in Greenland, and then again in 2013, and you can see the amount of ice being melted during this period. And the extra melting of the ice, of course, increases the sea levels all around the world. This is what we call sunny day flooding in Miami in Florida. The flooding is not due to torrential rainfalls, but due to high tides. The situation and a condition that will only get worse as the sea levels continue to rise. And here you can see the top 10 cities at risk from sea level rise. And we can see that many big cities in developing countries are very much in danger. And the heat stress is now beginning to decrease crop yields from rice, corn and soybeans, and the exposure of higher levels of carbon dioxide also decreases the nutrient content in so many staple crops such as rice, wheat and soy. The warming of the climate and the extra soil moisture is now also contributing to the spread of so many tropical diseases that have never been a problem in the past. The struggle between humans and microbes has been going on since the beginning of our species, and we know what works in our favor is longer and cooler winters. The main mosquito that spreads Zika dengue fever and yellow fever is now covering a wider range due to wetter and warmer world. And we are now in the midst of what the biologists call the sixth great extinction. We are in danger in this century, and we are losing more than 1/2 of all the species on Earth. And we must ask ourselves, do we not have the moral responsibility to stop such a catastrophe affecting the life of which we are a part? And so, as you can see, I haven't had the time to even go through all the consequences and other consequences of this man-made global pollution, ocean acidification, climate refugees and water scarcity. But as you can see, the cost of carbon is unbearable, and its effect on our global economy is unbearable, and its effect on the world species is unsurvivable. So going back to the question, must we change? And the answer is yes, which takes us to the next question, can we change? Luckily, the solutions to the climate crisis is widely available. The wind energy, for example, the growth in wind energy being built around the world is an exponential curve, as you can see. Wind globally can supply 40 times more than what we need currently for the whole world. And even a more dramatic story is solar energy, photovoltaic electricity, and we can see an exponential curve in the amount of solar being installed around the world as well. This is one of my favorite images of a solar panel on a rooftop of a hut in Africa. So we can see now with these affordable and cheap solar panels that not only they are green energy, but also many people around the world that have not had access to energy and electricity before are now able to use these cheap and affordable solar panels and have access to electricity. And every hour we receive enough energy from the sun to run our entire economy for a whole year. And we know that battery storage is an essential part of this green energy revolution, and we know that there is still so much work to be done, but the batteries are getting better, the quality is getting better, and because the demand is growing, you can see that the market is growing and the prices are dropping as well. As well as LED lights, we can see the growth in the market, and the same thing goes for electric cars. And I know that there are so many different comments when it comes to electric cars, but I have no doubt that with the technology being advanced every day and advancing every day, we will for sure find ways to make the manufacturing and the production line of these electric cars more sustainable. And so we have the solutions at hand, which takes us to the next question. Can we change? Yes, we have the solutions at hand, but will we change? Do we have the will to make that transition? And I think one of the good examples would be the Paris Agreement. In 2015, the world came together in Paris to fight the climate crisis. It was a historic moment. Many countries came together and agreed to phase down greenhouse gas pollution to net zero emissions as soon as possible. It is a very difficult and challenging task, but we are on the road forward, and although it is a long way to go, but the future is promising. But one thing is very important. Climate action isn't just about what countries do. It is very important to know and remember that we all have a role to play and we all have the responsibility to lead on climate. We must use our voices, we must use our votes and our choices to fight the climate crisis, because whether we like it or not, our lives, our livelihood and the world depends on it. I'm going to finish today's presentation with a few inspiring words from our chairman and the former US Vice President Al Gore, who is an inspiration to me. In one of his latest talks, he said, "If you are tempted to be discouraged, don't be. If you have not yet joined in the efforts to mobilize the solution to the climate crisis, what are you waiting for?" This is one of the most important challenges of our time, and it is the most serious challenge that the human civilization ever confronted. We have the ability to rise above our limitations, and we have done so many times before. So if you think for a moment that we as human beings do not have the ability to rise above our limitations and do not have the will to act, always remember that the will to act itself is a renewable resource.